During the Andor show, we basically learned that Mon Mothma is sort of working from the inside of the Empire to bring about the beginnings of the rebellion. Now we know from Rogue One and A New Hope that she will eventually defect from the Empire to become the official head of the Rebel Alliance. But just when exactly did this happen? When did Mon Mothma stop working as a senator from the inside of the Empire to becoming the Empire's public enemy? Well, in the Andor show, we were given just a clue and just a hint of what is to come, and how Mon Mothma's defection will come about. And we get it during the scene in which the senator finds out that her husband has invited some of her worst enemies over for dinner.
Oh, we should find some Ghorman guests for tonight and see how amused they are. Your fun friends just cut off their shipping lanes yesterday. Do you know how many will starve? Perhaps we can laugh about it over the third course.
On the surface, this might be a bit of a throwaway line to deepen the lore of the world and to give the audience some context about why these people are terrible, but in actuality, there is a whole lot more than that. You see, the cancellation of the shipping lanes to Ghorman will eventually lead to some galactic-wide consequences, and one of the greatest atrocities ever committed by the Empire. And specifically by Tarkin 3 years after the events of the show. Following the Empire's decision to cut off shipping lanes, the population of Ghorman would suffer heavily from the lack of supplies, leading to the starvation of the population. In response, the local population would stage local peaceful protest against imperial rule, and all things considered, it was a pretty reasonable response and far from outright rebellion. However, this is where the accounts of events taking place after the protests deviate depending on whether you read canon or legends. In canon, it is simply described as a fact that stormtroopers were sent into Ghorman and would begin to slaughter peaceful protesters. There is not much detail after that, except that the accounts mention that survivors of the massacre would go on to join the rebellion and others to join Saw Gerrera's partisans. The report of the massacre would first reach Senator Tunra Pamlo, who at the time worked closely with the rebels' intelligence service, which is how the rebels came to know about the atrocity in the first place. However, in Legends, it's actually a lot darker than that, and we get much more extensive details on what had occurred. In Legends, the protesters, instead of protesting in response to cancelled shipping lanes, the protesters were protesting against heavy imperial taxation. And as the Empire became much more authoritarian and enforced harsher measures, it was common sight for such protests to occur. In response to the protests on Ghorman, Tarkin would travel to the planet to sort out the situation. However, as Tarkin's warship attempted to land on the planet, protesters emerged and stood on the ship's landing pad and refused to move, an act of defiance that prevented Tarkin's arrival on the planet. As the situation unfolded, it was implied that Tarkin received permission from Palpatine himself, and once the green light was given, Tarkin decided to land his massive warship right on top of the protesters. The vast majority of the protesters were killed instantly, crushed by the massive weight of a Star Destroyer. Hundreds were severely injured, and many would later die as a result of those injuries. Only a handful escaped with their lives, most likely with some severe psychological damage. As a result of this horrific act, a political group known as the Delegation of 2000, which included the likes of Mon Mothma, Bail Organa, and so on, were incentivized to plot open rebellion against the Empire, all of which led to the creation of the Rebel Alliance. Regardless of the specific details of the event, it was also recorded that this was the event which led Mon Mothma to deliver her speech of open defiance against the Emperor. In a speech considered to be a turning point for the galaxy, Mon Mothma openly decided to defect from the Empire. In her speech, she states, "I name the Emperor himself for ordering the brutal attacks on the people of Ghorman. Their peaceful world is one of countless systems helpless under his oppressive rule. This massacre is proof that our self-anointed emperor is little more than a lying executioner." With these damning words against Palpatine, Mon Mothma chose to flee and go into hiding, officially declaring her position with the rebellion. In response, the emperor would order for her arrest, making her a fugitive of the Empire. It would later be the event that would act as the final tipping point in bringing the Rebel Alliance together. In Legends, the rebels named a Corellian gunship the Ghorman's Honor as a tribute to the victims of the massacre, a ship that would later participate in the Battle of Andor. Throughout the early years of the rebellion, the Ghorman massacre would be the atrocity referenced by rebels as an event that best encapsulates imperial cruelty, that is, until the destruction of Alderaan. So that is how Mon Mothma became a fugitive of the Empire, and how the Ghorman massacre led to the creation of the Rebel Alliance. It's very likely that we will see this either towards the end of Season 1 of Andor or in Season 2. Regardless, it's going to be a very big moment. Let me know what you think in the comments down below, be sure to like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. I am the Lost Acolyte,
and I have spoken.